Hi, everybody, and Who Are You? He's back, and I've got to say, I've been trying to get this guy on. He's the one who got me on Who Are Ya on his channel, which is Hollywood Bulls. But I've got to welcome Who Are You, Geordie Pete. Pete Redding, how are you, mate?
Kev, how are you doing? It's great to be on. Fantastic and lovely to see you. And looking forward to this. Really excited.
Listen, it's great to have you on, Pete. And listen, I just want to give everyone a little rundown about how long have we known each other, Pete?
Too long, yes.
Yeah, too long. You've been out in Dubai for a number of years. You're at Geordie, obviously Geordie Pete, and you've been following the tsunami from sunny Dubai, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been in Dubai, UAE for 20 years now, coming up. So lots, great lifestyle. It's been a great city, a very evolving city, as you know, because you've visited. Been very lucky to be involved in great projects and now doing what I love, which is football.
Yeah, it's always special. Anyhow, typical. I'm speaking to you, and who do you reckon's just been calling me? Budgie, Lord Budgie. He's going to be driving me mad, so I just cut him off. Listen, Pete, let's get stuck into it because, look, you've got a lovely family and you're all Toon Army, right? So
That's right.
Who are you, Geordie Pete? Let's get into it. Pete, what was your first ever game watching Newcastle at St James's Park? Because I know there's a lot of Geordies who will be watching or would love to hear who are young Geordies who never really experienced it like you did. So what was your first ever game watching Newcastle at St James's Park?
Well, Kev, I consider myself to be really lucky because it was a dream, because I've seen him twofold. I've seen him as a player and as a manager. And as you say, a lot of the younger fans won't maybe even have seen him as a manager, you know.
Yeah.
But it was the first game I saw was Kevin Keegan's debut for Newcastle, and it was against Queen's Park Rangers. And it was at Newcastle. It was a sunny day. It was
it his second debut?
August. No. It was his debut.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was and people were queuing from the morning to get in there. The ground at the time, I think it held about 36,000, and literally the queues for the Gallagher end were monumental. We had tickets that day, and it was a sunny day. It was August. I remember it. Walking up, seeing the stadium for the first time, seeing the green grass, and of course all the buzz was around Keegan making his debut for Newcastle. And of course, in true Roy of the Rovers fashion, he left it until about, I think there was 12 minutes to go, and he got a through ball at the Gallagher end, and he just bent it round Peter Hooker, who was in goal at the time.
Peter Hooker, yeah.
And it took an age, but it went in, and Keegan started with 3 points, a goal, and a win on his debut. And that was it. I was hooked.
And how did you feel, Pete? Because obviously Kevin Keegan was a massive name. How did you feel?
I just remember because I was little, and we were our seats were down near the Leazes end, and his goal was at the Gallagher. I just remember having to turn and ask my dad, well, who scored? And Dad just looked at me and said, "It's Keegan," because I remember being little at the time. What used to happen was, even though we were sitting down, as soon as anyone got the ball on the wing, the fans would stand up,
and you couldn't see, yeah.
And you couldn't see, and all I remember was seeing this little head bobbing through, and the last thing I remember was his shoulder dipped, the ball went, and then the next thing, there was pandemonium. The whole stadium broke out. So that was it, really.
Oh, fantastic. So need I ask you who your favourite player was growing up as a boy?
Yeah. Do you know, funnily enough, before Keegan came, I did have a hero, and it was Imre Varadi, who was centre forward for Newcastle, played for Everton as well as Chef Wed. And Imre was Hungarian.
Good player. Yeah. Imre Varadi.
Great
Handful.
And then Keegan came, and of course, as a young boy, there was, I remember getting the Umbro top, and they didn't have numbers then, Kev. You couldn't buy the numbers, and they certainly didn't have names on the back of the shirt. So my mum, God bless her, got some red ribbon, and she sewed me a red number 7 on the back, and I was the only one in the schoolyard to have Keegan's number 7 on the back. So it was Keegan, and it just seemed, even as a little boy, he was magical, and you didn't worry then. I mean, if they were getting beat, you would just think, it's all right. We got Keegan,
It's football. It's the game. Yeah, it's the game. It's all part of the game. Now, do you know what? And I know how fanatical the Geordies are. So for Keegan to be there Wow, that must have been some atmosphere in the stadium, Pete.
It's funny you say that, because as a young boy, I don't think I appreciated until later on how lucky we were to have someone of his ilk. You know, former footballer of the year. It was when you look back at the stats now, it was criminal that Southampton, let him go. And he had that thing with Bobby Robson as well, that where Bobby Robson said he was finished internationally, but for the Newcastle, for everyone, it was. I always remember the front page of the Evening Chronicle when he signed, and it was just a big picture of Arthur Cox, the then manager, and Keegan, and he had his hand on his shoulder, and it had "Where in heaven we've got Kevin." And
Brilliant.
yeah, happy times.
Fantastic, Pete. Pete, did you ever get to meet any players when you were young? Because you get all the magazines and you get the sticker books and all that, but did you ever get to meet anyone?
It's funny, not as a young lad, and I remember going to we went to the training ground at Newcastle, which used to be in Benwell, up in Newcastle, and my mum and dad enrolled me into this football course, and we went, and Arthur Cox was running it, the Newcastle manager, and even with us as kids, I mean, what a disciplinarian he was, and a couple of the players popped in at the time to say hi. Beardsley was there, but one of the guys that came and helped and participated, funnily enough, was from Sunderland, because it was a Northeast soccer school, and it was Gary Bennett.
Right.
Who was the captain,
Sunderland connection,
and luckily enough, I've interviewed Gary recently on Hollywood Balls. So I didn't meet any players until later on in my life, where through a connection and friend, I used to go out with the entertainers, and boy, could they entertain off the pitch as well.
Yeah, well, that was all part and parcel, Pete, wasn't it? I'm not gonna ask you to tell any of those stories. And listen, that's the code. That's the code. You go out, you have a good time, and you keep that quiet. I know, mate. I know. So, Pete,
what goes on in the big market stays in the big market.
It stays in the big market. That's right, in the tune, mate. Listen. So tell me your St. James's Park match day experience for a 3:00 Saturday afternoon kickoff, Pete. Because so many times games are on Sundays and Mondays and all over the place. But that 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon, tell me your experience. Because I'm sure you've got two experiences.
I mean, you have, yeah. I mean, as a little boy, it used to seem like that. Basically, what used to happen was my dad and all his friends would go over to the town about 1:00, and there was a little pub near the ground called the Hodgson's Arms, and we used to go in there, and they would plonk me up on the bar and the pool table with a Diet Pepsi, packet of crisps, and I used to sit there and just think it was hours until we used to get to go to the ground, and then it was time to go. So my Saturdays were like that as little, but then when I started going with the boys, and of course it was a 12:00 start on the team.
It weren't that long then, was it?
No, it was never enough. Actually.
Never enough, yeah.
I think we used to fit about 4 or 5 bars in and around. And as you've seen, Kevin, I know because you've played there so many times, but we're very lucky in the fact that the ground is right bang in the middle of the city. So, we used to get 4 or 5 bars in, and then we used to, the last bar was the Three Bulls Heads, famed in Newcastle, and it was literally a 6-minute run up to the Gallagher end from there.
Yeah. Brilliant, Pete. Brilliant. But Pete, as a boy growing up, Pete.
Yeah.
Were you one of them where you were up early? Because I was always up early. So if I knew I was going to a game, I'll be up at the crack of dawn. Obviously, the game's at 3:00, and I'll get myself ready, and I'll just be ready to go. Was that what you were like?
Downstairs, 8:00 in the morning, and full strip on.
Yeah.
And at the time as well, we're very lucky nowadays, and youngsters they've got social media. There was none of that. There was, if you read the paper, we used to get the local paper, which was the Newcastle Journal, and you would scan for team news, who was injured, who was going to be playing, and it was a case of, you'd get across. I always remember you'd get to this pub, which was full of Newcastle United experts, of course, who all knew what the team was going to be. But it was part of the folklore, Kev, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah.
just, oh, do you think he's going to play so and so? Will Waddle be playing today? And it was just the buzz of listening to everyone going to the ground, and the day was over like that. It was a blur.
Yeah, yeah, and if you've won, the elation of everybody is unbelievable, and if you've lost, you know, you take it, don't you? It's a lot different back then, wasn't it, Pete? Football was a bit different back then.
Yeah, and then, you know, I mean, everyone said, even my teachers used to complain to my parents and say, you know, he's a bright lad, but you know, this football thing, it sort of consumes his life. And they were saying that my technology project, I was way ahead of the curve, Kevin. My technology project, I was making goal line technology to see if the ball could go over the line. Hey, maybe I'm in the wrong game.
Yeah, love that, Pete.
My English thesis was about the life of a tree, so obviously I turned into a goalpost.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just literally obsessed with football as a young lad.
Fantastic, mate. So listen, I'm gonna try and get you to think back now to a successful time. Can you tell me what your day and night was like when Newcastle got promoted to the Premier League, Pete? Because
No.
under well,
Yeah.
there's going to be parts you forget, obviously, but the day and the night, it was a great time for Newcastle, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was amazing, and you know the last game, it was a celebration, and I always remember they played Leicester, and they had Lindisfarne before the game as you know the local band to play, and it was just obviously it was going to be a party, whatever the result, and Newcastle was 6-0 up at half time. You know, like Coley, Rob Lee, Clarkey, and it was just like, what's going on? So after the game, we stayed in the town, along with about 100,000 people were just partying all over the town.
Yeah.
And then we went back to our village, Wickham, just outside of Newcastle, and our local pub, and we partied outside in the pub gardens till about 6 in the morning. And I always say, you know, that was to win the championship.
Yeah.
If Newcastle ever do win the Premier League or the FA Cup, God forbid, you know.
I'm going. I've got to go up there.
Oh yeah, I mean, but it was incredible, you know, that whole thing, and that season was. They played Derby County away at the old baseball ground, the second game of the season, and people knew there was something special. We were at that game, and literally the season before, Derby had absolutely battered us 4-1. A great side at the time, you know, Tommy Johnson, Kitson. They had a great side. And then that next season, literally a couple of months later, we went down there and we won 2-0. And the Toon fans were singing, "We're going to win the league." And it was only 2 games in.
Second game, brilliant.
Everyone knew there was something special happening that season. And everywhere they went, it was absolutely phenomenal. And again, Keegan was the catalyst.
Again, Keegan's name is synonymous with Newcastle and the black and white. So, Pete, what's your favourite away trip? And if you can, include the result. And I'm talking about back then, not recent times. Back then, what was your favourite away day?
I think for me, it was funny. Everyone would say when they won the championship, and so obviously it was championship based and grounds. And what happened that season was Newcastle were going in their thousands, which was fantastic because every other club welcomed it with open arms. You know, I mean, you were getting anywhere between 5,000 and 15,000 going to an away game. And if they couldn't get in, they weren't bothered. So
they're there as long as they're there. Yeah.
In the vicinity. So everyone will say Grimsby because that's the night they won. They won the title. But for me, it wasn't. For me, it was a day at Peterborough. Amazing, absolutely incredible. So Peterborough were mid-table, London Road. We got the train down. Literally, there was about 16,000 Toon fans in Peterborough.
Wow.
And we were top of the league, and it was halfway through the season. And Peterborough they were gobsmacked, and they were like, "Oh yeah, open. We only get about 6,000, so the ground holds 20." So there we were at London Road, kick off. There was 16,000 Toon fans in the ground and 4,000 Peterborough.
Wow.
And they won 2-0. Kevin Sheedy scored that day, mate of yours.
Really, yeah.
And that was it. That was it for me because we made good friends. Wherever we went that season, we made friends with people. and it was absolutely incredible.
I mean, I'm just thinking, I don't think that has ever happened at a club I've been at where the away fans have got more fans at the stadium than the home fan. That's brilliant. I'm sure Newcastle have done this before, where when Celtic come to town, Celtic they
Yeah,
come out of the woodwork. They're like ants. They're everywhere. For I think it was David O'Leary's testimonial, and they brought a whole load of fans. But Pete, 20,000 seater stadium or 20,000 stadium capacity, and you guys have 16,000.
it was
That
mad.
is a round of applause, mate. That's unbelievable, and it's a league game, isn't it?
Yeah, it was halfway through the season. I'd give it credence, even if it was like towards, we were still battling, but it was halfway through the season. But as I say, it goes back to this belief that something special was unfolding, and it was like that at most games. I remember we went to Millwall. Um, and that was the old den,
The old den, the old cold blow lane, yeah, tasty.
And they were winning 1-0. And there was 2 minutes to go, and there was about 5,000 Toon fans behind the goal. And Clarkey scored an equaliser, and then Coley scored in the 93rd minute. And they were singing "You'll Never Take the Geordies," and that was the only time I was thinking, "Shh!" Millwall were going berserk behind the fence.
Ballistic, yeah. I could imagine. Well, you done them bad with the 2 late goals, mate. You done them bad. You done them bad, Pete.
And I have to give a special mention that day to my friend's dad, who drove us down in a Ford Fiesta because his car wasn't working properly. So we drove from Newcastle to Millwall in his Ford Fiesta. And after the game, we were filling up just outside the ground in Millwall. And this Millwall fan comes over and he starts going, we'll do you up at Newcastle. And we were like, yeah. And my mate's dad was going, yeah, well, we'll see. And I was just like, no.
Shut up. Fill up. Oh, brilliant, Pete. Brilliant. So, Pete, tell me, what are you doing now, and what do you do now for people who are listening and stuff? Because obviously Dubai, you're out in Dubai. Tell us some of the things that you're doing right now.
Okay, so I've got a video and podcast platform called Hollywood Balls, well, that side. And basically we do lifestyle, sporting interviews. We speak with people like yourself about memories of their career. So we featured people like John Barnes has been on, Barry Venison, obviously the Newcastle players as well, because we feed that back through to the Northeast media. So yeah, it's basically a collection of stories, but not just footballers. We've had celebrity chefs on who have a penchant for sport. We featured the ladies golf tour. Annie Dimmock's been on there, great girl. So yeah, we just look at sports, celebrities and lifestyle and get those stories over. But what's important about it, Kev, is it's about trying to get the stories that the fans want to hear. Yeah. We know that Andy Cole scored 68 goals in however many games, but what happened that day where he fell out with Keegan and Keegan hauled him off? So we ask the questions that the fans want to ask.
Really want to hear, yeah, that's good. Well, I should know, Pete. I'm quite a bit of a regular on yours, and every couple of weeks and stuff. And we have some great debates, and you and I ask each other questions, which is a bit different. Which was the first part of the "Who Are Ya" on your things, but this is "Who Are You" and getting to know Geordie Pete. And listen, anybody, if you get an opportunity, go and have a listen to Hollywood Balls. It's absolutely brilliant, and Geordie Pete is a host with the most. Trust me, he's absolutely excellent. So, Pete, let's get down to current Newcastle now. What's your thoughts on the current situation at Newcastle United?
It's just a shambles. Everything about it, from the way it's portrayed. Firstly, the club, which it's obviously in the spotlight at the moment due to the takeover, or as I like to call it, the fake over, because it's just what's going on. I mean, funnily enough, we've got a Newcastle United supporters trust, It does a great work in the Northeast, not just for the supporters, but also there's the food bank in Newcastle. It's raised about £10,000 last season for the homeless charity food bank up in Newcastle next to the ground.
Yeah.
They do a lot of work, and I was speaking to the chairman yesterday, and what we were saying, for those that don't know, obviously we're in limbo because the Premier League haven't made a decision about the takeover, so our would-be investors have pulled out. So all we're asking is that no one wants to say, yes, you have to let the takeover go through. We just want to know why. If it's not allowed, why? Then so we can all move on. So that currently is the major issue. And as you've probably seen, the fans got behind it big style. 100,000 signed a petition to make the Premier League come out and answer. Over, I think it was 500 Northeast MPs have written to the Premier League now, including our very own Chi Onawaru, lovely lady. She's been on the show as well. Brilliant. She's the MP for Newcastle City, and now Boris Johnson's come out and said, "Look, Premier League, you have to give an answer." So there's that side to it, Kev, which is holding up whatever goes on because the transfer window's open. So the club we don't know. They're in limbo. There's people's jobs at risk. So that's the major factor, and of course an owner that doesn't want the club and fans that don't want that owner.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, Pete, isn't it? Especially with that. But do you know what? You're the Toon Army and everybody associated with Newcastle United Football Club are well within their rights, Pete, to ask. You want to know why? You want an answer, because it's all very well saying no, it's not, and putting the mockers and block on it. But why not? Everybody else seems to get an owner who comes in and could spend his money how he wants, but they're not even entertaining it for some reason. So you're well within your rights. But has the Premier League come out with anything, Pete? Have they said anything?
Just a wall of silence, and I think they've backed themselves into such a corner. I have to say, from a marketing perspective, it's been nothing short of a disaster because, I remember this petition literally started about 10 to 14 days ago, Kevin. People were smiling politely at it and sneering at it from other clubs. And I thought, watch this grow. It's grown. Every time the Premier League post a social media post, there's a question from a Newcastle fan underneath. So the Premier League have started blocking all the Newcastle fans on the social media. Now the attention has turned to the sponsors of the Premier League, which they won't be happy because Tiger were looking to invest and open up a new business in Saudi. So the questions are being asked, if it's good enough for Tiger, who are a sponsor of the Premier League, why is it not good enough for Newcastle football? Yeah. It's very political, and it's, you know what, they're having a shock at the Premier League. They're really, really having a nightmare with it.
Well, do you know what, Pete? I sincerely hope it could all get resolved. But that kind of ties me into my next question for you, Pete. Okay, if you had to pitch Newcastle United Football Club to any would-be investor, Pete, what would it be? What would you say?
First of all, everyone says about the support, which is a given. You've got your Man Uniteds, you've got your Spurs and Arsenals with the big stadiums, but you've got Newcastle who 52. I think they were getting 50,000 in the Championship the last time. So the support, which everyone knows about, but there's the potential there, to take this brand and make it a global brand. If you look at Manchester United, if you look at Liverpool, and you look at Asia, there's a massive Newcastle fan base in Asia, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I think it was season before last, they did a pre-season tour in China, and the amount of Chinese fans who love the Toon was incredible. So, I think that anyone with any foresight would see the possibilities with the brand and the marketing, being able to push that. And it's as simple as that. A big club with the right investment on the pitch, off the pitch as well, because it's due an overhaul. I think we've mentioned this on our show before. Yeah. We need a good academy. We need someone to come in and start again. And it's easy to knock Mike Ashley. Very easy to knock him. Everyone can and everyone will. But by the same token, what he has done and what we can't argue with, he hasn't gone in there and blown a fortune. They're financially stable. And when you look at other clubs and what's going on at the moment, I mean, look at Sunderland.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot frown at that. He's not interested. He doesn't want to invest in the club. He wants rid of it. That's fine. Let him do that. Let him get rid of it. I think he's missing a trick, personally, for such a famed businessman as himself. You know, if he can't see the fact that if he invested in that side and got them even into the top 6, you'd have to build another stadium, never mind an extension to it.
Yeah, Pete, but it's a difficult one because obviously, look, he bought the football club and he's got it. Remember, there were debts falling out of every cabinet that you opened the door and drawer that you pulled. There were debts. He's cleared them. Newcastle are on a strong financial footing now, solid, should I say, rather than strong, a solid financial foundation. He's never really been accepted, if we're honest, has he, Mike Ashley? Because he's rubbed the fans up the wrong way and stuff like that. I get all that, Pete, but he has had his good parts to play in this Toon story. But now what it is the next person who comes in that it's got the foundation already there now, hasn't he? Or haven't they?
Yeah.
So they can push the club forward. And you know what? It's such a fantastic football club with such a great fan base. I only want the best to happen for Newcastle because, you know, every time I've played there, whether we've won or lost, the fan base is so knowledgeable and everyone's so lovely up there, mate. So, you know, I can only wish you guys all the best. And this leads me on to, we're already on the last question, Pete. Right? Now, just have a little think about this. If you could change 3 things at the Toon Army, at the football club, for the better, to better that football club, what would it be?
First and foremost, owners, because you start from the top.
Yeah.
And dependent on the owners that they get, hopefully it's a step up ambition wise from Mike Ashley. As you said, you know, he tried a lot of things. He mingled with the fans. He went to the games with them. I always find that to be a bit of an error. He put Shearer in. He gave him a chance as a manager. He brought Keegan back as a manager. So his PR strokes were there. And then I think, you know, when it started to fade and not work, he got a bit tired of it, and he thought, well, I'm not going to do anything. And I think it was the lack of communication. So, you know, the fans didn't like that, the fact he just pulled himself back. So new owners who have to invest in the fans, you know, the fans come with the club, you know, and it can be a bit of a pain. But, hey, we've seen now in lockdown how much a miss the fans are to our game. So they mean everything. And I think that new owners would have to understand that. So new owners first. That leads me on to a new manager. I'm sorry. I think Steve Bruce has done brilliantly this season. And I'll get on to it because the reason that I say that is in my third part. I think he's done a great job with what he's had. People talk about Rafa Benitez. And, you know, the Newcastle fans are sick of people saying, oh, Rafa versus Bruce. But it's inevitable you're going to look at that. And I think what Steve has done is they're a more attacking side. You know, we've said on our show before, Kevin, he's brought on Alan St-Maximin, who's a better player. Mm-hmm. Jamal Lascelles is a great captain. He's a leader. He shaped him as a centre-half and as a leader. So Steve Bruce has done brilliantly, but he's not that next level manager. You know, you're going to be looking, if you're going to have new owners, you're going to have new vision as well. And then the third, and it's important, it's really important, and it gets left behind these days, is the brand and the PR message. So many respected ex-footballers and media find it so simple, Kev, to jump on the bandwagon. Newcastle fans demand success. Newcastle fans, you know, they don't know what they've got. Brucey's a world-class manager. He should be manager of the year. No, he shouldn't. They finished 13th. Yes, he's done a good job. Is he manager of the year? No.
No, he's not.
He's not manager of the year. And, you know, it's an easy bat to pick up. It's an easy win for footballers and ex-footballers and journalists who are in that football media just to bash Newcastle. The fans demand it. They don't. What they do demand is effort. You know, I've seen Newcastle still to this day be at a game. Kevin De Bruyne, Man City last season, when he scored that goal, you know, it really hurt us, but what a goal it was. And he got a standing ovation in that stadium.
Yeah.
Something that you don't see a lot of now, real football fans standing up and applauding a real bit of magic.
Quality, yeah.
Newcastle fans will gladly take a defeat if the effort's there. When the effort's not there, that's when they get annoyed. And all of these ex-players saying, yeah, Newcastle, you know, they demand this. We don't. You know, they talk about years of hurt for Arsenal, for 30 years of hurt for Liverpool. I think they won the Champions League twice. Crikey, I'd like to even see the Champions League. I'm 45, Kevin. I've never seen Newcastle win anything, you know. So it's not about that. We don't demand anything. So I think the brand message needs to be changed. It needs to portray what the fans really think. So they're the three things that I would change.
No, that last one is a really smart, really smart thing to say, Pete, because so many fans, you know, just put their mind somewhere else. They're not actually looking at the brand and the brand message and what it should say about the football club. Yeah, and that's the first time I've had that one on Who Are You, Mate? So yeah, listen, that's great, Pete. That's great. So listen, we've finished all your questions. Is there anything new planned? I know me and you are doing some bits for the football coin. Obviously, we know cryptocurrency is all coming in and stuff like that. Is there anything else that's coming in, Pete, or anything that you want to discuss?
Well, it just, you know, we're in season 2 of Hollywood Balls, of which, you know, you're a regular on there. So stay tuned, because what we try and do is we always try and catch you out, Kevin. You know, as the Invincibles did when you played for Arsenal, you went through all your questions of the first season of Hollywood Balls Unbeaten. So we're going to have to tighten that up a bit.
Yes, I was invincible.
So yeah, there's a few bits and pieces to come. We've got some great guests lined up as well, because it's amazing how far sport can stretch. You know, even all of our celebs who we see on the TV, the radio, who play in famous bands, they've all got a love of sport. They've all got a footy team like you and I. Yeah. So it's good to get on there. We had one of the great guests on season 1 was Tom Watt. The author
who used to be Lofty in EastEnders.
That's right.
Top guy.
And
top
Arsenal,
guy. Big Arsenal.
Top guy.
Massive Arsenal fan.
And there's
used to see him out all the time.
Yeah. So, but he was so interested, and he was telling me that, you know, he's based in Cheltenham at the moment, and he goes and watches Cheltenham play purely for the fact that he'd fallen out of love with the big game as it was. You know, he wanted to go back to stand behind the goal and hear some bant. And, you know, it was interesting. So, you know, we'll be looking to get guests like Tom back on and talk about the how football's evolved. Of course, yourself. So, yeah, just stay tuned to Hollywood Balls. More to come.
No, fantastic, Pete. Listen, I've got to say, it's always a pleasure speaking to you, because it just flows so nice and easy. And listen, hopefully you can get the takeover done and we could get you on for part 2, because I'm sure we've got plenty more to cover, Pete. But can I say thank you so much, Pete? Thank you for having me on your Hollywood Bull show. And thank you for coming on my Who Are You? And we'll see you next time, Pete.
Absolute pleasure.